The idea is that we want to be more than just pro-life, because like many states in the country, pro-life people are the majority, and their babies are still murdered. And so it's not enough to just be pro-life, because that's not changing, that's not saving lives. Right?
Usually what that means to be pro-life is to hold a moral opinion about life.
What would you like me to do to further your cause?
Well, like for instance, like the main thing that we're asking people to do is change their mind from a pro-life mindset, which is typically like a passive stance against abortion, holding a moral opinion, or regulating abortion as healthcare, like the pro-life movement has done for 4 decades, to move to an abolitionist mindset, which says that we need to take moral action, whatever that might look like for you, that is consistent with treating abortion as murder and sin, and seeking its total and immediate abolition, rather than being distracted by like side fights about like baby body parts being sold, or like, you know, regulations about how wide your hallways should be at clinics or whatever.
Isn't that why we vote in presidents like Donald J. Trump and Mike Pence?
Well, no, so that would be part of the problem, is that the pro-life movement for a long time has put their faith in getting the right president and the right Supreme Court justices, but that's actually a completely failed strategy.
How do you prove your cause?
Well, so like, I mean, for instance, in Texas, HB 948 is being put forth. It's the Abolition of Abortion in Texas Act, and it treats abortion as murder. It actually says that if the Supreme Court rules against this bill, if it's passed, we will ignore the Supreme Court. Texans will ignore the Supreme Court. They won't show up for court, and they're going to enforce the law in Texas anyway, regardless if the federal government does that. So, like, as abolitionists, we wouldn't support pro-life presidents or pro-life candidates, because what we know they mean by that is that they will regulate abortion, but they won't abolish abortion.
Yeah. A good example is, let's think about what Donald Trump has actually said that he will do, and what pro-lifers have actually asked him to do. If he did everything that he said he would do and the pro-lifers have asked him to do, abortion still wouldn't be illegal.
Right.
Overturning Roe versus Wade is not going to end abortion. If Roe versus Wade were overturned, which would be great, all that would do is put the issue back to the states. California would still continue to murder babies, right? And Donald Trump would continue to allow that. So Donald Trump, everything the pro-life community has asked him to do, and everything that he said he would do, would not end abortion. Donald Trump has not stood up and said, I will end abortion because I'm pro-life, I believe babies are being murdered, and I'm going to stop it because I recognize it as an authority, as a civil magistrate. I have a duty before God to uphold the Constitution and the law of God that it was built upon in protecting life, right? So the pro-life movement is not doing that. They're content to pass bills that ban abortion for 20 weeks, and they raise it. I like Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't. I like Donald Trump, but if he has no intention of actually abolishing abortion.
Well, you don't know that. You don't know what the Lord's going to do if more Supreme Court justices. I mean, the first step would be using the court system that the Lord has given us. And that's really the only way that I see it being done.
Well,
through the court system, the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court that gave us Roe versus Wade was a conservative elected Supreme Court. The one that upheld it, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, conservative elected Supreme Court. So it has actually been conservative, pro-life, elected judges, appointed judges, that have actually upheld the legalization of abortion in our nation. So why would we think that a guy who is actually less pro-life in Donald Trump than, say, Bush or Reagan would actually give us anybody that we can put our faith in to overturn it? Like, that's a failed strategy, and if we continue to put our hope in that, abortion will continue for another 4 decades, and then another 4 after that. Where it has to go is the states need to defy tyranny and injustice, and they actually have an obligation and a duty before God to defy tyrants.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. I live in Minnesota, and we are totally liberal.
Yes, I'm in Wisconsin, so I neighbor you.
Yep. So
our states have gone different directions.
Yep.
So think about this, man. So I like him in a lot of ways, even though I think he's probably morally not the greatest dude. I'm drawn to some of the things that he does. He's got more courage than most pastors and the things that he says. Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wish most pastors had the courage to say things as boldly as he says things. Our nation would change dramatically if pastors had a fraction of that
out
courage.
there that do
There are
very vocal about.
Unfortunately, it's a
all
small
these
number.
issues.
But back to the point that you brought up, if Donald Trump does everything you just said, if he appoints pro-life Supreme Court justices and Roe versus Wade is overturned, again, that's not going to end abortion in Minnesota. Babies will still be murdered in Minnesota.
Right.
So what we would call on Donald Trump to do is to embrace what we're talking about here, abolitionism, to say abortion will end. We're going to end it. We cannot murder babies. It's not a matter of whether the courts, I mean, here's the ultimate reality: is the courts have been out of control for decades.
Right.
They've imposed a liberal agenda on the states, and it's subverted the democratic process for a long time, and nobody stands up to them. We just say, well, the courts have ruled. We got to do what the courts say. That's not biblical thinking, and it's not constitutional.
Are you born
thinking.
again Christian?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a pastor.
Well, we are on our way out. I will take this.
Yeah, please consider it and think about it. And we're right in your neighboring state, Wisconsin. We have a website, abolishabortionwisconsin.com. Check out that website.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you talking
Lord
with
bless
us.
you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
So what are you guys out here doing?
Oh, we're trying
Winning
to,
friends and influencing people.
There you go.
That's our strategy.
We're trying to. We want our brothers
Hey, how you
here,
doing
the
today?
pastors,
Share some
brothers and
information,
sisters, to
Oops,
entertain
sorry.
the ideas of abolitionism that is contrary to the ideas the pro-life movement has put forward for about 4 decades now.